Welcome to the Authority File. I'm Bill Mickey, your host and the editorial director at Choice. We're back with another series, and before we get started, I'm extremely excited to share that the Authority File is now an award-winning podcast. That's right, we were named Best B2B Podcast at the 2023 Publisher Podcast Awards. We'll link to it in the show notes for this episode, and you can also check it out at publisherpodcastawards.com. Many thanks to Media Voices, the producer of the event, for the recognition, and of course to the amazing team here at Choice. In this 4-part series, which is brought to you with support from Rittenhouse Book Distributors, I'm joined by Nicole Gallo, Executive Vice President at Rittenhouse, a privately held distributor of titles in the health sciences. We've examined quite a bit of DEI-related collection development topics on this podcast, and I'm glad to have Nicole on the program because we haven't yet heard a distributor's approach to DEI priorities. Distributors, of course, occupy a position between the publisher and the library customer, and Rittenhouse has taken a very proactive approach to shifting its collection management practices to ensure DEI remains at the forefront of the health sciences market. In this 3rd episode, we discuss how Rittenhouse has executed on its editorial and collection management priorities, how it has built services that enhance the buying experience for libraries, and what the company has learned since launching its DEI collection. Okay, so once again, just kind of, leveraging your perspective on the library and publishing markets, how has Rittenhouse sort of operationalized its own editorial and, collection management priorities to support these two constituents? I mean, you've come back to access over and over again.
Right. And
Yep.
yeah, I mean, I touched on this earlier, but distribution is centered around diversity and access to content,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, I talked a little bit about how we changed our operational practices with the publishers to make sure we have information well ahead of time. But we now have a publisher relations team, which is fairly recent in the past few years. We used to let inventory control manage the publisher relationship, right? Marketing would get involved. So if we were going to have to market a new book or, do co-op advertising, but inventory would manage that publisher relationship. We now have this team, and we have a publisher ambassador. That's an actual title of someone on our team who works to make sure that the publishers know what we're trying to do and we understand what the publisher is trying to do. And that we transcend, you think of some of the big commercial publishers, they publish thousands and thousands of titles a year. Well, that could take all of your time, just trying to stay up on what the big guys are doing.
Yep.
We make sure that all types of publishers, the scholarly publishers, the associations, the commercial publishers, the one-hit wonders, I like to call them, I'm a doctor. I published this book, I got it published through one of the publishers, but I'm marketing it myself. We work to understand the whys behind that.
Mm-hmm.
And so putting this publisher ambassador team in place really has helped us to understand that why.
Yeah.
And that was something that it was, we took one of our sales reps who had been with us for 20 years, understood distribution. We said, hey, this is a sales position. And we're thinking about it a little bit differently.
What triggered that? So forming that team?
It really was triggered out of necessity.
Yeah.
We kept, and things like DEI and what's going on. And our inventory department is, we have 500 publishers, over 1 million resources. It's a moving target.
Yeah.
And, they're really managing meeting the demand of our customers, making sure inventory is on order, making sure we have good terms, right? So we've got to make money at this somehow and stay in business. But marketing and sales kept saying, we need to understand the topics that are driving these purchases.
Right.
And that's really paramount to our success.
Mm-hmm.
So we now, we engage into meaningful conversations about the editorial process, the whys. We understand what guidelines are driving publications, and then we can disseminate that. And it can inform our services. It can inform our sales process. When the reps, like I said earlier, we distribute equally across publishers. So when the reps are calling on an institution or we're talking to a library, we say, what are the areas that you're focused on for collection management? And then when they tell us, we need to be able to say, oh, well, we have, this big commercial publisher, but we also have this association that has published important content.
Mhm.
So our publishing team, publisher relations team, we meet weekly and we have the sales team on and they present what they've learned in the past week from the publishers. We don't have everybody sit in on those. In the olden days, we would have a 7-day meeting and we would have 10 publishers present a day and they would talk about the importance of their front list, but they didn't get into the meat of the whys.
Mhm.
It was really a straight sales process. So, we're really striving to communicate to our customers the whys and the topics that are important. And then conversely, we listen to the libraries and, we also sell into retail. So we understand, what courses are being taught, what's important, what's selling. And our publishing partners look to us for that information. So we can tell them by customer type, hey, this is what's really important now. And then that can inform what they publish. It's really
Mhm.
sort of interesting. And, it, we really flipped our processes on its head and this happened right around the time of COVID. So that also has something to do with it.
Mhm.
We were no longer having publishers come in and meet with us and going and meeting with them. And so
Right.
we had to figure out how to have a meaningful dialogue and what that looked like. And so, COVID really did force this change for us, and it made sense to me. And it was right around the time we had Rittenhouse was sold in the middle of COVID. We're still privately held, but the new, who buys a book distributor in the middle of COVID? But
Oh, right.
right, but they saw the opportunity with the aggregated access to information.
Mhm.
And so they really challenged us to take a look at how can we leverage that and improve our operation, improve our sales, and give the customers more of what they needed. So
Right, right.
it's been a process.
Who bought you?
We're still privately held.
Yeah.
Two entrepreneurs.
Okay.
We were family owned,
Mm.
and the owner was just ready to retire.
Exit. Yeah.
Um, he didn't want us to be sold and you know sold off.
Mm.
He was very careful in finding someone who was willing to try and keep the distribution going.
Right.
And we're a trusted company, so there was a certain level of keeping that trust alive and
Right.
and making sure that we were operating the same way. So yeah, it was interesting for sure.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, once those sales wheels
Mhm.
get moving, it's hard to stop them.
Yeah.
And then moving on to likewise for the library sector, how are you or how have you built services to support and enhance the buying experience for libraries?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, of course, we talk and listen to the libraries and figure out what they need, but you know, we believe at the core, of information that the patron of health sciences content, they have to find an answer to a question and they don't have a lot of time to search around. So we always say find, don't search. That's one of our taglines. It has to be quick and easy, and especially in healthcare, right? You could have
Hmm.
a patient who has an immediate need. And we wanted our buying experience for the librarian partners to be the same. So, libraries have less time, fewer staff, less budget. They need to maximize all of those things. So we really looked at how can we develop services that address those areas, make it easy to find and then maximize their budget.
Hmm.
And how can we solve the problems of, fewer staff, less money, and what can we do to really fit into their workflows? So, I mean, I could go on all day about all of our services, but there's a few things I'll talk about here. We have a service that will assist a library in keeping their collection up to date. So, specifically in health sciences, it's really important that you have the most recent edition because the way healthcare is taught and administered changes. So, we have a service core collection update that will take their shelf list give them back a quote for what they need. They can pick and choose, but we let them know like, hey, this is out of date. That's a free service for us. So we felt that was one way we could meet the, keep your collection up to date, and also not enough staff to do the research themselves. So we have a library services team that does that.
Mhm.
Um, you know, one of the biggest elephants in the room, and we've been talking about it, is librarians purchasing just in time versus just in case.
Mhm.
So, just in time, they buy it because they need it and they know it's going to be used. Just in case, they buy it in case anybody might ever want to look at it. And, the days of old where they would just have an approval plan and get everything within a topic area, those days are long gone.
Mhm.
So, we try to understand they no longer have that luxury of purchasing everything. And specifically, look at it, DEI, if they could, they would, right?
Mhm.
They would buy
Yeah.
everything available. So we, especially with our digital content, we have a patron driven acquisition model that
Mhm.
enables them to try it before they buy it. So they make it available. If people are using it, then they buy it.
Mhm.
It's real time and they have real time usage statistics, so they can really engage in evidence based purchasing versus, just in case purchasing.
Yeah.
And that's also a free service for us. So, we're really looking at what's going on in the library and trying to drive that. One last thing I'll say is that, we work with all different types of libraries, and there's often not a librarian on the academic campus who might specialize in a health sciences area. So we try to make access to certain topics easier for them. We work with Duties Reviews and Duties Core Titles, which is a review service for health sciences books. We license that so we can make it freely available for the libraries, and that can help to inform their collection management. It's essentially a list of, if you're going to collect in this area, these are sort of the highest rated books in that area,
Right.
and they're rated by librarians. So, so we really do try to engage in services based on what the needs are. We have open educational resources available. So, they're free ebooks. We know that, and of course, the free ebooks sell more than any other books that we sell. We have more units out there being used. But, we've enabled these collections through one click purchasing, just to take some of that curating and research off of the librarian's plate. So, both for print and digital, we try to make those services available.
Right. Right. Excellent. So you've since come out with sort of like a specific DEI collection. I think that's around 6 months old. I'm wondering
Hmm.
if you can talk about that and sort of what you've observed since that collection was established.
Yeah. Most of the time, we sell to all different types of libraries, right?
Mhm.
So, most of the time, we will know a medical school, they're going to buy the medical publications. A nursing school is going to buy the nursing publications. This is really, well, first of all, the DEI collection is in our top selling collections of all time.
Wow. Okay.
Really interesting.
Good.
Right. So when I
Hmm.
look at, when I'm drilling down to look at the books that are selling, and, we look at them individually and as a collection, the DEI books are up there. It's being purchased across all types of libraries. So, all the medical schools, the nursing schools, the allied health, community colleges are buying it,
Hmm.
hospitals are buying it, hospital libraries. So it really is one area where the curricula and the type of program that the library is servicing, it's not really impacting it. It's
Mm.
really interesting. And we have other collections like that too. Um, but it really does speak to the importance of these initiatives and the demand for that type of content. It's really been a phenomenon. And
Hmm.
Duties Core Titles has a collection there, and all of the publishers are now putting out collections there. So we're trying to curate that, but it really has been interesting to see.
Excellent. I did want to go back to one thing, and that's sort of the budget issues that
Hmm.
libraries are experiencing, and how is that being communicated back to the publishers? Like, are they kind of that pricing conundrum? Like, how?
$50 million question. right?
I'm always curious about that. Like, how does, who blinks first, I guess.
Well, I think, and because I've been here for so long, I have definitely seen the price of publications come down.
Hmm.
Even Rittenhouse, I don't really haven't touched on it, but we built the, Mercedes of platforms. It was designed for health sciences. Our pricing model was out of whack. We were
Hmm.
more expensive than buying it in a straight PDF because we served it up with bells and whistles for health sciences, the ratings, the curated collections, all of those things. But at the end of the day, while the libraries love that, they only have so much money to
Yeah.
spend.
Right.
And so we have always tried to communicate that up to the publishers to say, budgets are shrinking. And, we'll do a business review with the publishers and we'll walk through our market segments. And you can see it in the sales trend, right? And we're not journals, we're books. So we're definitely impacted more with regards to budget dollars.
Right.
And we can also study the print to digital migration. So we have always communicated, that the library's budgets are so tight,
Hmm.
and we have seen pricing come down. And also we bang on them to make sure that they make their content available digitally
Right.
because
Yeah.
usage drives purchasing. And one of the things that we look at, and even we look at it collectively for our entire platform and the thousands of customers we have on it, we don't know when we sell a print book if it's used, right? The
Yeah.
library can look at the gate count and look at how many times it was checked out or whatever. But on the digital side, you can.
Hmm.
And so we see, because of the way we're topic driven, we can drive that usage. So anytime someone searches a term, they're going to get access to that book. And
Hmm.
so we really try to encourage the publishers, one, to make it available digitally. Two, we're trying to price it right and telling the publisher, like, don't make us pay you too much for this book. And
Hmm.
we've had cases where we can't bring the content onto the platform because what we have to pay the publisher for it is too high, even though there's demand for it.
Right.
So it is a never ending battle. And, I hate to say battle because the publishers are our customers.
Yeah.
But we really do stress that a lot when we're meeting with them. And if they're like, why are sales off? Typically it's because the price is too high.
You just heard from Nicole Gallo, Executive Vice President at Rittenhouse Book Distributors. This series is brought to you with support from Rittenhouse. Join us next week as we discuss the business trends influencing the purchasing and publishing priorities around DEI, including the importance of data and how Rittenhouse sees itself fitting into library and publisher policies regarding DEI. As always, underwriting opportunities for the Authority File podcast are directed by Choice's advertising director, Pam Marino, and all of our episodes are produced and edited by Choice's digital media producer, Sabrina Kofer, with support from digital media assistant Ashley Roy. That's all for this week. Thanks for joining us.